We are Makilala TV, the first Filipino-American TV talk show in the New York metro area. Get to know us as we talk to the community leaders, innovators, advocates, and emerging artists who affect Filipino-American life.
Hello, welcome to Makilala TV, the only Filipino-American talk show on the East Coast. My name is Cristina Pastor. I used to think many years ago that homeschooling was common among families who lived in rural America. Maybe because they had more children and sending them to school could be expensive. Or maybe because they belonged to a religion that encouraged it. Or maybe because I watched a lot of really bad movies. Over the years, however, homeschooling has become a widely accepted education lifestyle. When the pandemic happened in 2020, homeschooling exploded all across the country. Some parents gave it a try, others were forced into it by lockdown and other circumstances. Today, we would like to hear from two Phila mothers who homeschool. Anne Ceria of Bergenfield, New Jersey, has been homeschooling her 5 kids over the last 10 years. Ness Liwanag of Hudson Valley, New York, has 2 boys who were homeschooled during the 2020 lockdown. Why do they do it and how do they manage? Joining me today is my Makilala co-host, Rachelle Ocampo, and our guest co-host, comedian Patricia Dinglasan, who has 2 boys of her own. Our co-host, Jen Fuhrer, won't be able to join us today. Welcome to Makilala, ladies and mommies.
Thank you.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Anyway, Ness, let me start with you. How did you end up homeschooling your boys during the pandemic?
So it was March of 2020 when the pandemic started. So my boys were home and we were told that they can't go back to school. And so we had to start remote learning. I have to be honest, I was a momster during the during that month. I was just, it didn't work for us. The remote learning or the virtual learning, as they call it, didn't work for us. I was just always shouting. I was always mad. I was always upset because I thought my child wasn't just not getting it.
You were always upset because your kids were not following you?
The virtual learning, they were not, because everything was new. They had to answer all the questions on the computer, and there's a time limit, and there's a schedule, and it was just the instruction from the teachers were not clear too on when to submit the homework, what time they needed to submit it, and what are the things that we had to submit before the end of the day. So there was a lot of miscommunications, and the teaching part was just not for him. It wasn't working at all. So I was tired from the pandemic, and I was upset because he wasn't learning anything, and I was upset that he's not finishing all the work that he had to finish on that day. It was just chaotic. So I said, that's it. I am not going to do this again on the upcoming school year. So that's why we started homeschooling.
Wow. Ness, did you feel like it was almost like the kids, once they immediately started to do the homeschooling, it's like the school suddenly expected them to be like little office workers on Google Classroom with like attaching assignments and going into their email? And these kids how old are your kids?
My eldest one by then he was only 8.
Yeah. So they're expecting kids to be suddenly proficient in like attaching emails and like copying their teacher. And
even
it was crazy.
Even the teachers too, they were still adjusting back then because everything was we were all in shock, and the teachers were not really prepared March 2020 for this kind of teaching. And my boys before the pandemic, there was only like a measure of time that they're allowed to use this technology, like 2 hours a day of iPad, and then suddenly they had to be on the computer for 5 hours every day. So, and then they had to learn to attach their homework, scan it, print it, and then attach it, and then send it to the teacher. So it wasn't working at all. And then we had to be in front of the computer at a certain time. Like we had to be online at 8:30 up until 11:30, and then off for 30 minutes, and then we have to go back online again. It was chaotic. It didn't work.
It
So.
sounds definitely intense and so
Mhm.
just asking so much for parents and teachers as well, to make sure that they, follow all the guidelines to make sure that their kids are, at least up to their other classmates. So, Anne, how did you know that homeschooling was right for you?
Actually,
Okay.
I started.
I'm back. Sorry about that.
So I initially wanted my children to go to Catholic school. So when my oldest, who's now he's 14 now, we were looking into preschool for him in our local Catholic school. He was 4 years old at the time, and my biggest concern for him was like, how is he gonna do number 2, and how is he gonna wipe himself properly?
Oh my God.
Yeah,
Valid
was actually
concerns,
my
valid
main
concerns.
concern. Yeah, that was my main concern. So my brother-in-law, and I have a twin sister also, was like, introduced me to homeschooling. They were like, why don't you just try homeschooling? It's only preschool, it's really easy. And I did. So I finally did try it because I was like, oh, being a nurse and everything, I'm like, I don't know how he's going to wipe his butt for a number 2. It's kind of gross. So yeah. I kept him for that year for his preschool. And then I ended up loving it. Like it was just, something that I guess came natural.
Yeah.
And because the subject was still easy, and that is my favorite thing to teach is preschool, actually. So yeah, that's how I got started in preschooling.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry, homeschooling.
Patricia, you have a question?
No, I was just like, okay, maybe I could teach preschool, but
Yeah.
how do you teach the older kids? Like, you must be a genius, because I did not know like how to do double-digit math, and then they changed math.
Yes.
So how do you like keep all this stuff in your brain? Like, how are you guys so much smarter than I am? Like, please share the secrets.
Well,
So
go ahead, guys.
no, you can go ahead.
No, go ahead then.
Okay, I actually enrolled in a program, so they give you a syllabus, right, on how to follow their books. They send all the books and everything, and it takes a lot of preparation. So you have to read it ahead of time. So you kind of have to remember the things you learned in school and everything. So, but if you do have problems in those early years, I did have the option to call a counselor from that program so that they could tell me how to teach my kids better if I was struggling in a certain subject. So yeah, it did take a lot of recalling some of those things we learned back in the days. So.
But my question for Anne is that you have kids of different age levels.
Yes.
Does that mean you have different classes for each of them? Or do
do
you just lump them in one class?
Well, for certain subjects like math and English or reading, I take turns with the kids. So I'll start with the younger kids first. So that way, they're not misbehaving or anything like that early on in the day. We can get it out of the way so they can play for the rest of the day or watch their videos or, play video games. And then I do the older kids later. But for certain subjects like history and science, I use the curriculum where we can all do that together.
Wow.
Yeah, so we do science and history together. So the 4-year-old and the 14-year-old, we sit through it together. So the 4-year-old will do what he can do with that subject, and then the 14-year-old will do what's appropriate for him as far as homework or quizzes. So it's made my life easier since I changed it, because before I had a curriculum where history was different for each kid. And science was different.
That's what I thought too.
So the more kids I had, the harder it tended to be.
So Ness, how long is a class for you?
For me, it's typically 3 hours every day, Monday to Friday. On Fridays, it's so much easier. It's different for me because I have a special need child. So my 4-year-old is an autistic. So his homeschooling is totally different from my 9-year-old. So
You
how
homeschool
do I?
both boys. You
Yes,
homeschool
I
both boys.
yes, because for my autistic child, when the pandemic happened, they can only do virtual therapy, which is totally it doesn't work. So anyway, so I decided to homeschool him, and we the district was generous enough to provide therapists that we can go to in person for 30 minutes every day. So we had 10 therapists every week. So me and my 9-year-old would get in the car, and my 4-year-old would go to therapy for 30 minutes, the first session, and I would teach my 9-year-old in the car. We're doing math in the car, sometimes history. Yes, we are
In the
gonna
car.
the hardest part is it was winter time where we had to stay in the car, and I just had to leave the car running so we can be warm inside, and we would study history in the car. So the curriculum that we got it included there's a CD where we could listen and read the book at the same time for world history, and then for mathematics it's never been a problem. It was never a problem for my luckily for my 9-year-old. So yeah, so we're always in the car going to therapy 3 times a day.
Rachelle?
Yeah.
You have a question?
Yeah, no, so I am personally a social butterfly. I love like meeting new people. And for me, when the pandemic happened, I mean, it was also when I was pregnant and I had my first baby. So my concern was, how do I make sure that my baby gets enough social interaction? And from my assumption, homeschool kids, like, how do they get that social interaction with kids their age? And how do you make sure that and other than playing with themselves, like the 5 kids, how do you ensure social interaction with other kids their age?
Which is what the schools provide, actually, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually 6 kids now. I have a 7-month-old.
But your 7-month-old is not yet being homeschooled, right?
Yeah, no,
Good for you.
Damn.
Please.
So that when we first started, I did feel very.
I
like,
think Anne is shaming all of us. Sorry, Anne, go ahead, continue.
Yeah, so when we first started, I did feel like we were so isolated because it was just us, just my family. And then eventually, I started going to homeschool conferences, and I got connected with other moms and other dads that were homeschooling also in a faith-based program. So they introduced me to a homeschool cooperative, and we were going to that homeschool co-op once a week. So basically, my kids got to experience what it would be like to be sitting in a classroom with a teacher. And this was families of, other homeschooling families. And the teachers were also moms like me or dads, or they would hire a teacher if they couldn't teach a certain subject. So it was such a blessing because they did get to experience, being around their age group in that homeschool co-op, and they got to do certain things like gym, which really I can't do at home. Certain things like music lessons with a class, or certain things like parties, field day, all those things that you would do in a traditional school. So that was an option for us as a homeschooling family, was to join a homeschool cooperative.
That's right. Patricia?
No, I was just saying, like, you both, Anne and Ness, like, you guys seem like totally cool, in tune moms. I think like you're taking away the stigma. Like when like 10 years ago, when I would hear homeschool, I would be like, oh, like, what's going on there? Like a little mysterious.
I had that something in the back of my mind that people who homeschool are,
Yeah, but I'm like, these ladies are cool.
That,
it's a big decision
attached to it, right?
Yeah.
It's a big decision. Homeschooling is not an easy task to take. It's such a big responsibility.
So how do you grade your kids?
Oh.
How do
I? Well, at the end of every week, we have the curriculum that we bought. So we bought this whole curriculum for third grade. So at the end of every week, there's an assessment that's attached in the book. So you just give that assessment, and you don't really, because for me, I didn't want my children to feel scared whenever they hear the word quiz or test.
Oh, okay.
I want them to feel confident that they knew that they know what they're gonna answer ahead of them. So when Friday comes, we do just 1 hour of homeschooling and then just play in the backyard. So that 1 hour, I make sure that they're relaxed, that they're just having fun while doing the assessments. So by the end of that test, you will check the paper, and if you find like 2 mistakes, then you sit with him, and then you just explain to him what happened during those two points. So it's really an exercise of loving your child, your boys, my kids, and how to love them more, and how
There's
to
no
calm
pass or
myself
fail.
better.
There is no pass or
there's
fail. Okay.
Wow.
All right.
No,
This is
not
like
really.
this is
Yeah.
like mind blowing to me. Like
No
that-
pass or fail.
we're like so used to like the Asian like tiger mom, you know, that's like A's and you know just like achievement, and this is like such a gentle way of parenting, and it's kind of like blowing my mind in a way. Like this is a new Asian mom like generation
Yeah.
that we're raising.
There are a lot of
was
Asian
not-
moms who are homeschooling right now.
I was not a very calm mom before. Before homeschooling. I was a momster. I don't like mistakes from school when he comes home before, and I would find wrong like mistakes on the paper. I hated it. And then I started homeschooling, and it changed me. Like, this is a new person right here.
Wow.
It was an emotional roller coaster that I had to go through for me to become a better mom. So it was really for me, not for my children.
So, Anne, do you think homeschooling will prepare kids to enter high school or college?
Absolutely. Yes, because homeschooling these days is easier in a sense that we have so many resources, right? Well, as opposed to maybe just 20 years ago, you had to make up your own curriculum and research your own things. Now we have online programs where, if I was not really good at a certain subject, for example, I can just sign up my kids for an online class. Like, one of my kids is learning Latin this year.
Wow.
So I signed him up for a Latin class online. So the teacher grades everything. He learns everything from that teacher. I do certain quizzes, like verbal quizzes, just to make sure that he does know what he's learning.
Okay.
But yes, the beauty about having joined the Homeschool Cooperative was I got to meet moms who were ahead of the game, and they had sent their kids to college. Or if not college, they prepared their kids for trade school, or perhaps, join the service, things like that. So yeah, I was like, okay, this is legit. Moms have sent their kids. And so if they can do it, I think I can do it too.
Right. Rachelle?
Yeah, I mean, that actually brings me to the next question is, curriculum and like the syllabus that you're talking about. How did you know that you chose the best homeschool curriculum for your child? Like you said, there's so many resources there, and it sounds to me overwhelming. Like, where do you start? How do you know what is the best curriculum?
So for me, I have a child who just did not like the writing in workbook and me just talking to him and, sitting through like a 10-minute thing of just writing. So I actually have this, he was more of a tactile kinesthetic learner. So I have this, for example, I'm going to show you like these things, like
Cool.
we do a lot of touching. We do a lot of activities like acting out certain things. And he responded so much better than writing with a pencil and a workbook. So, there are so many things that you can do to adapt to their learning style. So, for my kid who didn't like that workbook, these tactile things, manipulatives in math, it really helped him to be more attentive because I was pulling hair, like sitting there with momster, like, trying to get him to do the workbook. And he just absolutely could not sit there. It was torture. So like once I switched to these, different program, and his response was better. Like he was less, bored and less angry.
Is homeschooling, is it exhausting for the mom, for the parent?
Oh, yes.
It is
But
exhausting.
it is very exhausting because you have to, like Anne said, you had to learn how your child learns too. Like my boys, they're both very strong-willed children. So for them, rules are just guidelines. That means they don't have to follow it unless they know they really have to follow it. So it's just guidelines. And they're both very tactile too. So they have to touch things for them to really learn. Like the multiplications for third grade. It wasn't like before when we were studying during elementary days where the teachers would just put flashcards in front of us and we would just, have to memorize the tables in just one day. So for him, I had to really use like beads, or the curriculum that we got, we have a lot of manipulatives. So we use a lot of counters. So that's how they learn. So once you know how they learn, then it's going to be easier for you to navigate that path.
Yeah.
But still, it's an emotional roller coaster. We have good days and we have bad days where we just had to like skip that day and just relax and just don't do anything. And by the end of the school year too, it's just, I was just done.
Yeah. No, so I have been wondering, like both of you, you have kids at home, and then on top of that, you have everything else. Like, what is the secret to your patience? Like, what is the name of the wine that you are drinking? Is it a Pinot Grigio? Is it? I'm ready to order a case, and if you can let all the moms know what your secret wine or vodka is, I will greatly order myself a case today.
Have a virtual party.
I wish I could have wine. Unfortunately, I can't because I'm breastfeeding. So, but, yeah.
So, do the kids, what do they wear to attend your class? Can they just go there in pajamas?
My kids go in their PJs most of the time, but my sister, like I said, who homeschools, she has her kids in uniforms, like a khaki bottom and a top or white top to get them in that zone of like.
Okay. So there are tiger Asian moms who are homeschooling.
So where do you do it? Can you do it on the dinner table? Can you do it on the bed? How informal or formal are you?
This is about homeschooling.
Yeah, Cristina.
Well, you have to create an environment that's gonna work for your family. So for my kids, so I was able to establish bedtime routine and morning routine. So morning routine means they can eat and then make their beds. And then by 9 o'clock, we have to be in our schoolroom. So with me, because I am such a control freak, I need my house to be clean. If my house is messy, I can't think and I can't teach. That's just how we are.
I would also like to learn that secret of keeping your house clean. I need to know that too.
So I made a designated room for homeschooling where all the school stuff are just going to be in there because I don't like colorful toys. Anyway, so I am a home. I need my house to be neat and clean. That's the only way that I can focus. So I have a designated room where we can study. So by 9 a.m. we need to be there and we do the morning routine. That's how we condition them that, okay, we're going to start. And then after an hour, we have to go because we have to go to therapy. And then we go back home, we eat lunch, and then there's a routine. There's an environment that you need to establish and a certain level of commitment so that you can push through homeschooling because it's hard work.
Okay, Rachelle?
I mean, one thing I've always wanted to know is, do all homeschool parents work on top of also homeschooling their kid? Because I feel like that's already a huge commitment in having to learn the curriculum and then teach the curriculum and then like, how do you do it? Do you have other commitments that you are working on?
Short answer from Ness, and I think we're running out of time.
Yeah, I work pretty like once or twice a month only, because like you said, it does take a lot of time to prepare for homeschool. Yes.
And Anne, I think he's working as a day nurse. What do you call that?
Case manager.
A case man. Oh, you're now a case manager. Okay,
Yeah.
right.
Yes.
And Ness, you're responsible.
Yes, I work online. So I stopped the photography when I was homeschooling. I'm a professional photographer, so I stopped that. And then I just did the social media coordinator and do the website building. So I do all that very early in the morning or late at night. So late at night means 9 p.m. because my kid sleeps at 8 p.m. So at 9 I'll be working.
So if you ladies are homeschooling, does that mean that you don't get to cook for the family anymore?
Oh,
We do.
we do.
Are you absolved of that responsibility, of that chore? No. You still cook for the family.
So
Wow.
the key is
Patricia.
the key is not sleeping. Is that what I'm hearing? No sleep.
These are saints we have on Zoom. Anyway, thanks so much, ladies. Thank you, Anne and Ness, for a very informative and hilarious and enlightening discussion. And Patricia, for making homeschooling sound so appealing and fun and also scary. Rachelle and I appreciate that you could all join us. Homeschooling may not be for everyone, but for Makilala, we take our hats off to all parents who continue to teach and motivate and educate their children at this difficult time. To all our viewers, thank you for watching.